afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and today we are going to be reading OCDaniel, chapter 1 through 2. Now let's get right into it. I first realized that I was crazy on a Tuesday. I suspected it before, obviously, but I'd been hoping it was just a phase, like when I was 3 and I wanted to be a fire truck. But on that fateful October day, she said hello after the last bell, and it was official. I was completely bonkers. Tuesdays are usually my favorite day of the week. It's a weird day to like, but for me, a gangly, eccentric 13-year-old socially oddity with only one real friend, it has some serious perks. For one thing, we don't play football practice. Most kids probably like football practice, but when you're the backup kicker, you mostly just sit there and watch the bigger, stronger kids run into each other and incur lifelong brain damage. I know they're still studying and all that, but just talk to Daniel Howard for a few minutes and you can pretty much put a yellow warning label on the helmets. Sometimes I get the team Gatorade. Actually, I carefully arrange the cups into perfect geometric patterns to simplify drinking and reduce potential spillage. But that's the only fun part. Usually I just sit on the bench by myself and think about what would happen if aliens attacked the field and started laying radioactive eggs in the end zone. Or flesh-eating monsters that only ate football players emerged from the ground and chased Coach Clemens. Or if we were attacked by an evil supervillain named Clog, who shot fires out of his eyeballs and was strangely vulnerable to orange Gatorade, which of course I had in huge quantities. You get the idea. The result is always the same. I save the world and never have to go to football practice again. You might be asking why I go to football practice at all. The problem is that my dad, my older brother Steve, and my best friend Max all love football and may stop talking to me altogether if I quit. I think I'm already pushing my luck with Max, so I just keep playing on, or sitting on the bench anyways. I do some other stuff at practice too, but those are harder to explain, like I count the players and tie my shoes a lot and rearrange the cups after they're messed up. I think one of those fairly standard board activities, at least for me. I do a lot of things like that. Not sure why. I spend most of my time hiding from the other people, so I can't exactly ask what's standard. By the way, my name is Daniel Lee. That's like Lee, not Lay. People get it wrong sometimes. I did say I was an actual 13-year-old social oddity, which is true. Actually, I'm not sure what else to add. People say I'm smart, and I was in the gifted program when I was younger. Until they got rid of it because it was a bit confusing to tell the other kids that some students were gifted and they weren't. Also, I think they realized if they continued the gifted program, us gifted kids would be separated our whole lives. But that happened anyways, so big deal. I don't even know what gifted means. I remember things easily and I read novels at night, but that doesn't mean I'm smarter than Tom Durant, who prefers to play football and is now super popular. My teachers say I have a huge vocabulary and write way above my age level, but my brother told me to stop using fancy words or I'd never get a girlfriend. He has a girlfriend, so I have a little choice, but heed his advice. Take his advice. I also like to write. In fact, I'm writing a book right now, though I don't tell anyone that, even my parents. I don't want to share it, which will probably be an issue if I ever want it to be published. It's called The Last Kid on Earth. It's an adventurous story about a boy named Daniel. Cryptic, I know. I've written the first page over 52 times, and I'm still not happy with it. Oh, I also get distracted a lot and go on with tagnets, which means I talk a lot about things you probably don't care. So how is that smart? Let's get back to Tuesdays. Geography is my last class of the day. It's one of my favorite subjects and rarely results in homework, since the long-suffering Mr. Keats usually gives up on us and creates a work period so that he could sit behind his desk and read paper. There's no math that day either. Another bonus, since I really stink at math. So no football, no homework, and to make things better, Max usually comes over to play video games since his mom gets home late from work that night. Like I said, Tuesdays are the best. Well, usually. This Tuesday was not so great. As usual, I was sitting next to Max, who was super busy on our impending football game on Saturday morning against the Wilbury Wildcats. He's on the team too, but he actually plays. Max is the tight end, which is way more important than a backup kicker. Though in all fairness, so is every other position on the field. Of course, Max tends to forget that I don't even really like the sport and talks about it 20 times a day, but that's alright. We've been best friends since kindergarten, and he didn't ditch me when he got cool in 5th grade, and I didn't. In fact, being friends with him even got me a distant fringe of the popular crowd, where I would never be otherwise. I'm like the guy the cool kids know but wouldn't actually call directly. That's better than being the guy who gets shoved into a locker, who I definitely would have been otherwise. In any case, on that fateful day we were sitting in geography class, and he was talking about football, and I was looking at Raya. Raya is a girl that we hang out with. Well, Max does. I hang out with Max, who hangs out with Raya. She's this cool girl who's really mature and way too pretty to look at the backup kinger of the Erie Hills Elephants. Yeah, not a great football name. We do this whole trunk thing before games. Never mind. Back to Raya. She wears clothes that don't even make sense. Cardigans and shawls and technicolors. Stuff that aren't usually considered cool. I think. I wear t-shirts and hoodies that my mom gets at Walmart, so I'm not exactly a fashion expert. Though I read plenty of articles online in case Raya ever asks me out. For instance, I know that men should really wear fitted dress shirts and pants with pleats if they want to look successful and attract women. I considered it for a while, but my big brother told me that he would personally beat me up if I went to school with the pleated khakis. So I just keep wearing hoodies. I also know that some Parisian fashion designers still use ivory, which I find upsetting because that means they are killing elephants for necklaces that could be easily made out of plastic. I like elephants. They're clever, compassionate, and reportedly remember everything, though I can't confirm that. I try to stay focused. Raya's hair is cut pretty short, and it always looks super trendy and usually dyed red or something. But I really don't care about any of that stuff. Okay, her eyes are really nice. They look like hot chocolate with marshmallows circling the mug, which is one of my favorite beverages. And she has a pretty smile that leans just to the right, revealing one of those pointy fang teeth. Those are just evolutionary reminders from our ancestors biting into sinewy raw meat and muscle. But for Raya, the pointy fang teeth are perfect. She's also smart and funny, and she has the little dimple that deepens on her right cheek when she laughs. How long had I been staring again? You're being a weirdo, Max said, nudging my arm. What? He said. Case in point, Space Cadet. Max calls me Space Cadet, by the way. I do this thing where my eyes glaze over and I stare at stuff that I don't realize I'm staring at. You know she has flaws, Max said. My infatuation with Raya Singh was well documented. No, she doesn't, I said defensively. She does, Max insisted. Most important, she doesn't like you. How do you know that? A hunch? I turned back to Raya and slumped defeated. You're probably right. Max leaned in conspiratorially. But you'll never know unless you asked. I almost laughed. The class was the kind of whispering to each other in another way, but a laugh might have been a bit too much to draw attention. Mr. Keats was writing some stuff on the whiteboard, and we were supposed to be taking notes. I think a few people were. I kind of wanted to, but Max advised me that it was cooler to not copy notes. Worse for tests, though, I always noticed. Max didn't give me the best advice. He was like the cooler version of me. He was lean and muscular, with closely cropped black hair and piercing blue eyes. Girls liked him, though he seemed a bit leery of them. which he probably picked up from me. I was flat out terrified of girls, especially Raya. "What should I ask her?" I said. "Raya, do you like me?" He shrugged. "Sounds about right." I looked at Max indecorably. That was sarcasm. "Oh, well, I would just give it a try." "What do you have to lose?" "My dignity, pride, and self-respect." I paused. "Point taken." I sighed and shifted my gaze to the whiteboard, where Mr. Keats had finally stopped writing notes, and was now looking at the class in disapproval. If I had to describe him in fashion terms, it would be striped button down, shirt buttoned to the top, and pleated khakis. Oh, my brother was right. Written on the bottom of the board was geography test, this Friday, October 19th. Study, please. Frowning, I picked up my pen and wrote the date down. At least I started to. As I began writing 19th, my pen abruptly stopped on half the page. I was halfway through the one, then it hit. I call them zaps. They do different things sometimes, but there's a definite process that goes like this. Bad thoughts, terrible feelings or sensations that you just got attacked by a denominator, realizing that you may die or go crazy or never be happy again if you don't do something fast. This time it went, "There's something bad about that number." Tingling down neck and spine, stomach turns into overcooked Bavarian pretzel and hits shoes. You will never be happy again for the rest of your life, and you will think about it forever. Stop writing the number. I don't know if that makes sense. It's like telling someone about a bad dream. They listen and say, "Oh, how terrible," but they don't really understand. And they only half care because it wasn't real. And I think that's what people would say to me, but it is real. It's as real as anything. Think of the worst you have ever felt in your whole life. Like if you got a bad flu, or your dog died, or you just cut from the team you really wanted to be on. And imagine that happens when you take 9 steps into the bathroom instead of 10. That's what zaps are like. This wasn't a new thing. The zaps happen like 10 times a day. On some days, even more. I had no idea why, except for the logical reason that I was nuts. I didn't feel crazy, and I sincerely doubted that writing 19th down on a certain line in a notebook was going to result in the end of the world. And yet I couldn't shake the feeling. I quickly scratched the number out. "Why'd you do that?" Max asked, glancing at me curiously. I bit back a curse. I was extremely careful to hide the zaps, but I had lost focus for just a moment and had forgotten to check if Max was looking. My cheeks flushed. "It was too messy," I said casually, avoiding his eyes. "Figured I'd missed the date." Max snorted and went back to his doodling. Like you'd miss a test. The rest of the class went by normally, with me stealing a few more looks at Raya. And just before the day ended, the announcement cracked to life. The entire class jumped. Most had been either dozing off or talking quietly, as we had been given a work period to finish an assignment. I had already completed mine, which Max had copied off, so we were talking about football, or at least Max was. I was listening to him and pretending to think of how happy I was that there was no practice that night. Max was halfway through the story about a new route he had to run, when the principal's gruff voice cut in. "Attention classes, I have a quick announcement for the intermediates for the end of the day." Principal Frost was not an overly happy guy. He looked like a cave troll and had a personality to match, dour and temperamental. Sometimes I wondered if he even went home after school, or if he just lived in an office, surrounded by the piled bones of students who had gotten one too many detentions. Principal Frost sounded less thrilled than usual. "As you may recall, our first annual Parent Council fundraising dance will be happening in 2 weeks from today," he said, sounding like the idea of a dance was making him nauseous. "Council had asked me to remind you to get your tickets before they are sold out. Your teachers all have tickets available. Also, the noise in the hallway at the end of the day will not be tolerated. I will be walking around this afternoon handing out detentions. That is all. Oh, and clean your shoes off the mats." With that, the announcement had ended. The class instantly buzzed to life with some girls looking excited and some guys making jokes or groaning. The principal had an announcement that the dance at the beginning of the year, but I think everyone had kind of forgotten about it. Now my mind was racing. My eyes darted to Raya, who of course was looking completely oblivious to the news that I was listening and distractedly to her friends. Was this my chance? Would anyone actually bring a day? I looked around. There certainly seemed to be a lot of whispering. That sounds lame, Max said. Agreed, I said, shifting a little and glancing at him. But are you going to? Max paused. Probably. Mr. Keats was shaking his head behind the desk, obviously realizing his assignment was long since forgotten. The bell rang, and he had just waved a hand. Run along, he said. Hand it in tomorrow. Max and I quickly packed up our stuff and hurried out of class. The conversations around us were still squared focus on the dance. Taj was one of Max's football buddies. Joined us, clapping Max on the shoulder and completely ignoring me. He did that a lot, probably because he was a foot taller than me and literally could not see me. You gonna ask someone to dance? Taj asked, grinning. Max laughed. I doubt it. No one is going to do that, I chimed in. Why not? Taj said. He was a big and burly kid who played linebacker. I'm definitely going to. I don't want to be the kid sitting around with you chumps while the rest of the boys are out there with the ladies. Ladies? I asked, feeling my stomach flop over. An expression, Taj replied dryly. Maxie, you need to ask someone. How about Clara? She's a drama queen, Max said. Taj winked, and a hot one. Max and Taj laughed while I hurried beside them. So people were going to ask girls to the dance. Girls, like Raya, which meant I could theoretically ask her to go with me. I felt like I might vomit just thinking about it. Who was I kidding? I was so preoccupied with the dance that I belatedly realized that I was stepping on the tile cracks. There was no need to be reckless. I quickly adjusted my pace by 3/4 so that my sneaker fell squarely into the dull white ceramics. I was a master of adjusting my stride so that no one would notice. Up ahead, a TA, Miss Lecky, who was slowly walking down the hall, trailed by Sarah Melvin. Sarah was different. She had gone to our school since preschool, but she was almost always taught separately from everyone else. She hadn't spoken once in all that time, 8 years, and not one word. I still remember the first time she joined a regular class. It was 5th grade, and when I walked in, she was sitting in the corner with a TA. Her eyes on the board, and she didn't even notice us walking in. Everyone say hi to Sarah, my teacher, Miss Roberts, said before class. We did, but Sarah didn't even smile. Thank you, her TA said. She didn't speak for weeks, of course. I saw her TA say things to her, but that was it. She was just there and never responded. It was November when she finally made a noise. She didn't talk. She screamed. She looked off that day, flustered, sweaty, and fidgeting. She usually didn't fidget. It wasn't too far from her, so I saw it all. Her TA tried to calm her down, but it seemed to get worse. Finally, the TA tried to grab her arm to calm her down. Sarah screamed. The whole class jolted, and Miss Sanders dropped a chalk. Sarah wrenched her hand away, pulled the desk over, and ran out into the hallways. I never saw her in a regular class again. I'm not sure if she could speak, or if she had a learning disorder or what. Actually, I had no idea what was wrong with her. Her big green eyes were always foggy, glazed over, like she was looking at something far away. She didn't look at anyone or even seem to notice where she was. She would just go through her day like a zombie, her mind elsewhere. She always wore a bracelet with a few little charms on it and jangled around as she walked, but I never saw what they were. The other kids call her Psycho Sarah, but I had never seen her do anything crazy besides that one time. She just seemed distracted. I could sympathize. Sometimes I feel pretty distracted myself. Max, Taj, and I were just passing Sarah when something unexpected happened. She turned to me, her foggy eyes suddenly looking at me, clean and sharp. "Hello, Daniel," she said. And that is the end of chapter 1, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you have enjoyed, and I'll see you soon.